Hi, I'm Alex Honnold, and this is the Daily Mailbag. That's a lot of mail. What is your relationship with fear, and what advice can you give to those facing their own fears? That's a complicated question. As a climber, you get scared all the time. It's just part of the experience. My advice for those facing their own fears is, to some extent, you just have to face your fear. You just have to get scared all the time. It basically gets easier the more you do it. So if something seems really scary, you just have to not necessarily push past it, because there's kind of like the bravado of like, oh, just ignore your fear and push past it. And you're like, that's not a totally sustainable way to manage fear. Oftentimes we have fears that just don't make any sense. They just don't matter at all, really. And so when you really examine them, you're like, this is not my body warning me that I'm in danger. This is just a totally misguided signal that doesn't matter, in which case you probably should just ignore it. In climbing, typically your fears are at least somewhat founded because there is always potentially some consequences in climbing. Like if things go sideways, you could actually be injured. And so then you have to parse out like, well, just how dangerous is it? What should I do to try to mitigate this danger? Basically, fear is complicated, but the more often you get scared, the easier it is to manage.
It kind of reminds me of the climate, honestly, climate issues. And how do you manage your fear of like a climate disaster? How do you manage the fear of like this impending doom?
I think the challenge with climate change is just that it's such an overwhelmingly large scale problem that it can feel daunting. It's like, what can one individual do? Because it's just, the scope is too big. It's beyond anything that any one of us will do. The challenge with that is, you get lost in the futility of it. Like, why bother? Like, there's nothing I can do. One of the real pleasures of being the host of Planet Visionaries is that each person I get to interview is doing something meaningful through their life's work, through their career, like through their research. Sometimes just the personal passion that they have, where I'm like, oh wow, this person really cares about this particular path they've gone down. And anyone I'm interviewing for Planet Visionaries is kind of quirky in their own way. Like they've definitely deviated from the norm. Like they've gone way down some path. They devoted their whole life to researching penguins in remote places, or things like that. It's just a reminder that if humans follow their own passions, they can contribute in different ways. Like everybody has something that they're interested in, and if you take that all the way to the end, you get to interesting places. Airmail. We know you love climbing, but what do you hate about it? I don't hate anything about climbing. I love climbing. I don't really dislike anything about climbing. I mean, I don't love ice climbing.
Why?
Ice climbing is cold. No, I love rock climbing. I don't have a negative thing to say about it. Done with that one. What do I think about as I climb? That totally depends. I mean, ideally, if I'm climbing well and doing something challenging, then it's just good execution. I'm not thinking about anything. The best analogy is if you go jogging, it's kind of the same idea. If you're trotting slowly, you can think about your plans for the day or like the conversation you had with your friend or whatever. But if you're sprinting as hard as you can, you're not really thinking about anything. You're just breathing and you're running. Climbing is pretty much the same way, where if you're doing it at a very high level, you're just doing it. But if you're doing it at a low level, you're just looking at the birds and enjoying the scenery. The thing about rock climbing is that you're just out in nature, so you're just one of many animals. You see other animals doing all kinds of things, and sometimes on the cliff with you, sometimes scampering around in the mountainsides around you. I was just telling a friend the other day, I was once sort of lost in this canyon and was looking around for a while, and then realized that I was standing basically on top of a deer carcass that had just been cached, hidden by a mountain lion, basically. It was like a dead deer that had been covered in sticks and twigs and stuff. Apparently that's how mountain lions hide kills to save for later. But I was basically standing on it. I was like, oh my goodness. And then I left. But yeah, I mean, you're just in nature. It's there's just stuff going on.
You're enjoying that too much.
I mean, they throw so well. Ooh, this one's so tiny. What life lessons do I think living in a van or tent has taught me? I think living in a van keeps you tidy. You keep everything in its place. Also, every time you drive, you have to make sure everything's all buttoned up. It's like being in a boat or living, being in an airplane or something. You're just making sure your zippers are all zipped, your latches are all latched, your things are all put in the right places. I also typically cook in a single pot, and basically I never make a mess, and I have a single bowl and a single spoon and all those kinds of things. Yeah, I don't know, keeping it simple.
How handy are you at mechanics?
I am very unhandy. I lived in my van for 12 years, I think, and I basically don't know how to do anything in a car. Sadly, I'm actually becoming more handy now that I live in a house, because with a house, you just have to deal with random stuff all the time. I fixed my disposal in the sink the other day. I was like, I never wanted to have to learn how to do this, but now I learned. I was sad.
Have you become sloppy since you've been in the house compared to the van?
No, I actually live in my house much the same way I live in my van, where I use the same bowl, the same cup, the same everything all the time. It does slightly perturb me that my wife doesn't live that way, but it's understandable. What would people be shocked to learn about me? Honestly, I don't think there's anything shocking to learn at this point because, I've been at least somewhat in the public eye for, 15 years. I'm not particularly known for self-censorship of any kind, so it's kind of all out there. And then with the Film Free Solo, I mean, people were just following me around with cameras for 2 years. I'm into crosswording. But actually, I post stuff about that from time to time now, so that's not a secret.
Are you any good? It might be shocking.
Yeah, I'm pretty good. I can do a Sunday Times crossword puzzle. I mean, that's something. No, I mean, in the grand scheme of people who crossword, no, I'm probably terrible. But compared to the average person that doesn't crossword at all, yeah, I'm pretty good. I'm doing it a few years and I'm into it. I don't know what else would be shocking about me. I mean, it's not that shocking. I basically spent my whole life rock climbing. It's all pretty straightforward.
Do you have any guilty pleasures?
I love sugar. It's gotten too bad. My guiltiest pleasure is sort of eating too much dessert. It's a struggle. What has fame changed for me? That's interesting. I mean, the biggest thing is that now I'm sitting here with a pile of mail chit-chatting about weird things. But no, honestly, it hasn't changed that much. I mean, I still spend the bulk of my time climbing. And I think the biggest changes in my life have been having a family, having kids, because that fundamentally changes the way I spend my time and what I do with my life. But being more well-known is just a slightly bigger version of what I was doing before. It's all pretty much the same. Quote unquote fame has never really been a challenge for me because I've kind of opted into the whole thing. It's true that it's gone way further than I ever would have guessed or expected, but that's fine. It's like I chose to go down a path and I've taken it a long ways. I'm kind of like, okay, like what a journey. Like that's cool. Have your daughters changed your worldview or the choices that I make? So I have 2 young daughters. I wouldn't really say they've changed my worldview that much. I mean, they certainly have changed the choices I make around how I spend my time, just at home way more. I spend way more time with them. And honestly, I'm not even as interested to travel as much now. I'm just like happy being at home with the kids. I mean, I used to spend 3 or 4 months a year abroad on expeditions and sort of traveling for climbing. And now with kids, I'm kind of like, nah, I don't need that. But maybe once they're older, I'll be excited to do those kinds of trips with them. But in terms of worldview, yeah, I mean, people often ask, like, does having kids make you care more about climate or care more about the environment? I'm kind of like, I cared about all those things before I had kids. And I care about those things because they affect my life, because they affect the other 8 or 9 billion people on Earth. Having kids or not doesn't totally change the math involved.
How do you teach them about climate? Is there like ways that you can translate that to young kids?
I mean, my kids are quite young, but I think the first step is just getting them outside and having adventures with them, basically allowing them to love and appreciate the natural world. I live in Las Vegas. It's the desert, but it's been raining a bunch for the last week. And so my wife and I have been taking the kids to the puddles, basically these sort of intermittent streams that appear during rainstorms. And so we like go to the river and like play in the rocks and splash in puddles. It's just a nice way for the kids to sort of appreciate the changing of seasons, basically nature, like the cycles of life in the real world out there. So if you're trying to foster environmental protection in some way to encourage people to care about the world, I mean, the first step is for people to actually go outside and experience the world, because nobody cares about things that they don't see, that they don't understand. It's like basically spending time outside is the first step to caring about the environment.
So Planet Visionaries talks about kind of translating the exploration mentality to a conservation mentality, kind of like the explorers have to be conscious of how they're enjoying nature. Is there like one kind of motto that really helps bring people into that mentality?
In Planet Visionaries, a lot of the guests that I'm interviewing are just straight up scientists, like marine biologists, like working for marine protected areas and things like that. A few of my guests have been what we would sort of consider traditional explorers, people doing, glaciology, sort of like research in big mountains. But I mean, I think in general, I don't want to say exploration's dead, but exploration, the world is fairly well explored. At this point, there's more effort to be spent in protecting what's left of the natural world. I mean, there's still a lot of exploring to be done in the ocean, and that's not to discount that exploration still matters in a broad sense, but conservation is arguably much more important right now.
Is climbing a bit about exploration to some degree?
Climbing is very much about exploration because often when you're climbing something, you can't actually think to yourself, like, literally no human has ever been in this exact particular place before. And it's not exploration in the broad sense of discovering, new continents and finding whole new regions, but it's like on that particular tiny little sliver of rock, you're like, oh, I'm the first person to ever be in this spot. Or occasionally doing first ascents at towers and things like that, when you summit these little narrow rock spires and you can sit on top and be like, wow, like no one has ever been here before. Like, that's cool. And that's fun. But really, that's just for personal joy. I mean, that's not exploration in the broader sense. You're not really contributing anything to mankind. But it is personally pretty satisfying. This was the Daily Mailbag, and I'm Alex Honnold. And you can see me on Planet Visionaries in partnership with the Rolex Perpetual Planet Initiative.